Chapter 3 Escaped. The barn was very large. It was very old. It smelled of hay and it smelled of manure. It smelled of perspiration of tired horses, and it was wonderful sweet breath of patient cows. It often had sort of peaceful smell, and through nothing bad can it happen ever again in the world. It smelled of grain and of harness, dressing of the axles, grease of the rubber boots, and a new rope. And whenever a cat was given a fish head to eat, the barn would smell of fish, but mostly smelled of hay. For there was always have to be a great loft of overhead, and there was always hay being pitched down into the cows and horses and the sheep. The barn was pleasantly warm in the winter, and the animals spent most of the time indoors. And it was pleasantly cool in summer when the big doors stood wide open to the breeze. The barn was still on the main floor for the work horses, tied up of the main floor for the cows. A sheepfold down below into the sheep, a pig pen down below for rubber, and it was full of sort of things that you find in barns: ladders, grindstones, pitchforks, monkey wrenches, skiders, the manure, mowers, snow shovels, axe handles, milk pails, water blankets, empty grain sacks, and rusty red traps. It is a kind of barn to swallow like the built their nets in. It is a kind of barn the children like playing in. And the whole thing of the owned by Fern's uncle, Mr. Homer Zuckerman. Wilbur's new home was in the lower part of the barn, directly underneath the cows. Mr. Zuckerman knew at the manure pile the good place to keep a young pig. Pig needed warmth, and it was warm too comfortable down there the barn cellar on the south side. Fern came almost every day to visit him. She found an old milking stool that she had discarded, and she placed it into a stool of sheepfold next to Wilbur's pen. Here she sat quietly during the long afternoon, thinking and listening and watching Wilbur. The sheep soon got to know her and trust her. So did the geese who was living in the sheep. All the animals trust her. She was so quiet and friendly. Mr. Zuckerman did not like to take Wilbur's out, and he did not allow her to get into the pig pen. But he told Fern that she could sit into the stool and watch Wilbur as long as she wanted to. It made her happy just to meet her pig, and it made Wilbur happy to know what she was sitting there right outside her pen. But he never had any fun, no walks, no ride, no swim. One afternoon in June, when Wilbur was almost 2 months old, he wandered out into a small yard outside the barn. Fern had not arrived for a usual visit. Wilbur stood in the sun, feeling lonely and bored. There's never anything to do around here, he thought. He walked slowly to the food trough and sniffed to see anything had been overlooked at lunch. He found a small tripe of potato skins and ate it. His back itched, so he leaned against into the fence and rubbed against the boards. When he tired of this, he walked indoors, climbed the top of the manure pile, and sat down. He didn't feel like going to sheep. He didn't feel like digging. He was tired of standing still, tired of laying down. I'm less of 2 months old, and I'm tired of living, he said. He walked out into the yard again. When I'm outdoors, here, he said, there's no place to get in. But I'm indoors. There's no place to get but into the yard. There's where you're wrong, my friend, said the voice. Wilbur looked through the fence and saw the goose standing there. You don't have to stay in that dirty little yard, said the goose, who talked rather fast. One board is loose. Push on it, push on it, and coming out. What? Said Wilbur. Say slower. In the respect of repeating myself, said the goose, and suggested that you will coming out. It's wonderful out here. Did you say a board was loose? That I did, said the goose. Wilbur walked out to the fence and saw that the goose was right. One board was loose. He put out his hand and shut his eyes and pushed. The board gave way in the minute that it squeezed through the fence and was standing into the long grass outside his yard. The goose chuckled. How does it feel to be free? She asked. I like it, said Wilbur. That is, I guess I like it. Actually, Wilbur felt quieter and outside and his fence was nothing between them and the big world. Where do you think I'd better go? Anywhere you go. Anywhere you like, said the goose. Go down through the orchard, root up the sod. Go down through the garden, dig up the radish, root up everything, eat grass, look out for corn, look out for oats, run all over, skip and dance, jump and prance, go down through the orchard and stroll into the woods. The world is wonderful, and when you're young. I can see it, replied Wilbur. He jumped into air, twirled and ran a few steps, stopped looking all around, sniffed the smells of afternoon, and then set off walking down through the orchard. Passing into the shape of apple tree, he put his strong snout into the garden and began to pushing, digging, and rooting. He felt very happy. He was poet with a quiet piece of garden ground between anyone noticing. Mrs. Zuckerman was first to see. She saw him from the kitchen window, and she was immediately shouted for the man. Homer! She cried. Pigs out! Larvae! Pigs out! Homer! Larvae! Pigs out! He's down under that apple tree. Now the trouble starts, thought Wilbur. Now I'll catch it. The goose heard the racket and he too started hollering. Run down here! Make for the woods! She shouted to Wilbur. They'll never catch you in the woods. The stroker panel hurled into the commotion and he ran out into the barn of join the chase. Mr. Zuckerman heard and he came out into the machines, yelled while the matting of store. Lurvy, the highwayman, heard the noises and come out for the asparagus patch with the falling weeds. Everybody worked towards Wilbur, and Wilbur didn't know anything to do. The woods seemed a long way off. And anyway, he had never been down there in the woods, and wasn't he sure he looked like that. Get around behind him, Lurvy, said Mr. Zuckerman. I'll drive him towards the barn. And take it easy, don't rush him. I'll get a bucket of slops. The news of Wilbur's escapes spread repeatedly among the animals in the place. Rather, the creatures broke loose on Zuckerman's farm, and event was a great interest out into the others. The goose shouted for a nearliest cow that Wilbur was free. Soon all the cows knew. Then one of the cows stole one of the sheep. Soon all the sheep knew. The land learned about them to their mothers. The horses, instead of stolen the barn, pricked up their ears, and they heard of goose hollering. As soon as the horses had cut out what was happening, "Wilbur's out," they said. Every animal stirred and laughed out into the hand, and became excited to know that one of his friends had got free and no longer pained out into the vest. Wilbur didn't know which way to run. He seemed as though anybody was after him. "If this is what it's like to be free," he thought, "I believe I'd rather go to the pen up down my own yard." The Cocker Spaniel, and sneaking up from him from one side, Lurvy, the hired man, was sneaking one of them in from the other side. Mrs. Zuckerman stood ready to head him off started into the garden. And now Mr. Zuckerman is coming down towards him, carrying a pail. "This is real awful," thought Wilbur. "Why doesn't Fern come?" He began to cry. The goose took command and began to give orders. "Don't just stand there, Wilbur. Dodge about," cried the goose. "Skip around. Run towards me. Slip in and out, in and out, in and out. Make for the woods, twist and turn." The Cocker Spaniel sprang for Wilbur's hind leg. Wilbur jumped and ran. Lurvy reached out and grabbed. Mrs. Zuckerman screamed at Lurvy. The goose cheered for Wilbur. Wilbur dodged between Lurvy's legs. Lurvy missed Wilbur and grabbed the spaniel instant. Nice done, cried the goose. Try it again. Run down hills, suggested the cows. Run towards me, yelled the gander. Run up here, cried the sheep. Twist and turn, honked the goose. Jump and dance, said the rooster. Look out for Lurvy, called the cows. Look out for Zuckerman, yelled the gander. Watch out the dogs, cried the sheep. Listen to me, screamed the goose. Poor Wilbur was dazed and frightened about an hullabaloo. He didn't like being uncertain of the fuss. He tried to follow the instructions that his friends were giving him, but he couldn't run down hills and up hills at the same time. He couldn't turn and twist when he jumping and dance, and he was crying so hard he could barely see anything that was happening. After all, Wilbur is a very young pig, not much more than a baby, really. He wished Fern were there to take him in his arms and comfort him. When he looked and saw Mr. Zuckerman standing quietly close to him, holding a pail of warm slops, he felt relief. He lifted the nose and sniffed. The smell was delicious. Warm milk, potato skins, wet middlings, clogs, cornflakes, and popover left for Zuckerman's breakfast. Come on, pig, said Mr. Zuckerman, stabbing the pail. Come, pig. Wilbur took a step toward the pail. No, said the goose. It is the old pail's trick. Wilbur, don't fold it. Don't fall for it. He's trying to lure you back from the comfy evening he appealing you into stomach. Wilbur didn't care. The food smelled appetizing. He took another step towards the pail. Pig, said Mr. Zuckerman in a kind voice, and began walking slowly towards the barnyard, looking about him innocently, and he didn't know a little white pig was following along behind him. You'll be sorry, called the goose. Wilbur didn't care. He kept walking towards the pail of slops. You'll miss the freedom, honked the goose. "An hour's of freedom is worth a barrel of slops." Wilbur didn't care. When Mr. Zuckerman reached up the pig pen and climbed over the fence and poured the slops into a trough, and he pulled the loose board away from the fence so that it was a wide hole for Wilbur to work through. "Race and cider," cried the goose. Wilbur paid no attention. He stepped through the fence into his yard. He worked into the trough and took a long drink of slops, sucking the milk hungrily could choose poor Papa. The good it is good to be home. While Wilbur ate, Lorry fetched the hammer and 8 penny nails and nails up the board in the place. Then he said, and Mr. Zuckerman leaned lazily onto the fence, and Mr. Zuckerman scratched Wilbur's back for a stick. "He's a quiet pig," said Lorry. "Yes, he helped make good pig," said Mr. Zuckerman. Wilbur heard the words of praise. He felt warm milk inside his stomach. He felt pleasant loving of sticks along into his itchy back. He felt peaceful and happy and sleepy. When it had been trying afternoon, it was still only about 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, but Wilbur was ready for bed. "I'm really too young to go out into the world alone," he thought as he lay down.